So Jonathan Marchessault is the Conn Smythe Trophy winner. And you can see here is the voting results done by a panel of, I believe it was 18 voters, mostly NHL Professional Hockey Writers Association, I believe, handles this. And you can see Jonathan Marchessault with 80 points, 13 first-place votes, Eichel second, Adin Hill third, Stone, and then Tkachuk. And we are going to bring in now our friend Dave Pagnotta, who is he is from the fourth period, and he also got to vote on the Conn Smythe. So congratulations. I got to do that one time in 2007, and I ended up voting for Scott Niedermayer, who won the Conn Smythe, and you got to vote for Jonathan Marchessault, and he ended up winning. Yep. What was the process like for you? What were the things that you were thinking about, and were you sure going into game number 5 that he would be the guy you were voting for?
Yeah, it was a tough process because him and Jack Eichel, for me, were, kind of neck and neck. And Jack did a lot of good things away from the puck. He played very well defensively and was really responsible there and contributed. But the finish that Jonathan Marchessault provided the Vegas Golden Knights throughout the course of the postseason, especially in the conference final against Dallas, against obviously the Florida Panthers in this one, I mean, his game just tremendously stepped up. And the offense that he brought and the scoring, the will to drive the net, to always be in the right spots and to find the right spots on the regular. I mean, for me, this was just a guy that I felt with that finish, he was certainly deserving. It could have gone either way, realistically, and I would have been totally fine with that. But with Marchessault, the way he finished, the way he continued to get himself to the net and create those opportunities, for me, that was definitely the final marker. Look, Jack could have scored 4 goals, and maybe he could have taken the hat trick instead of Stone in the final one. Maybe that would have swayed it. But I mean, going into the game, I thought Marchessault, it was his to take home. And
just one last point on that: you had Stone as your third guy, and he had the big game 5. So did he kind of move up because of that?
He did. I was originally rolling with Adin Hill in that third slot, but with that big game and that big final presence that he brought, even before he got the hat trick and before this game was totally out of it, I kind of made that decision that Stone was going to be in the third slot for me. He did a lot of good things throughout the course of the playoffs, especially, again, like Marchessault, in the last couple of rounds, really stepping up for me. So I decided, all right, I'm gonna throw him in number 3.
There you go. Well, it's these things are always subject to opinion. I think really for me it was Eichel and Marchessault, the same as you. I probably would have went Eichel, but I think either way, there wasn't really too much argument. It was pretty straightforward. It was one of those two guys. Let me ask you about Adin Hill, because he is a pending UFA. We were just talking a little bit here about the goalie situation in Vegas. What do we expect is going to happen with Adin Hill? Is he going to test the market? Can Vegas keep him? What are you hearing?
Well, the Vegas Golden Knights don't have a ton of cap space. And looking at their roster, they're sitting at around $5.8 million in cap space, just over that right now. And they can create $5 million more with Robin Lehner on LTIR. So they do have flexibility, and every team has the ability to go over the cap by 10% in the offseason. But with some of the holes that they need to fill, and there are a few other positions that they need to fill here, especially up front, Hill may price himself out of Vegas based on his performance in these playoffs and in the Stanley Cup final. You're probably looking at a 2-3 year type of deal for him, somewhere in and around $3.5–4 million per season. And I don't know if that's going to be enough for the Vegas Golden Knights to accept and continue to fill other spots. So with how the goaltending carousel is going to play out this summer, it may be in his best interest on a personal and selfish note for him, which is totally fine, to test the market and to see what kind of deal he can get elsewhere.
Yeah, I want to ask you about Barbashev because, what's the situation there? He played so well on that first line.
And he was earning himself a big contract going into the playoffs, and that has just expanded so much more so after the Stanley Cup final. He's making $2.25 million. He's going to at least double that on an AAV next season. That's going to be a really tricky one for the Vegas Golden Knights to tackle. They already had discussions about the possibility of bringing him back before the Cup ended, and they just decided, him and his camp said, let's wait, see how things play out. And that might be in the best interest of Vegas, too, because they've got to kind of maneuver a few things. But he's probably going to be looking at a longer-term deal now after this postseason run, and just how effective he was. You see on the board the minutes that he played and the points that he generated. I mean, he was that key piece on that top line with Eichel and Marchessault that provided that physicality, that grit, that determination. I'll go into the corners and do the dirty work, let you guys handle the rest. And a lot of teams definitely value that. He generated a ton of interest ahead of the trade deadline. He's going to get more on July 1. He's probably looking at a 6 range type of on the years, $5-6 million AAV.
Yeah, he's won 2 Stanley Cups now in 2 different places.
Right.
So maybe if the money's out there somewhere else, maybe he takes it. We will see. Let's shift over to Toronto. Where do the negotiations stand right now with the Leafs and Austin Matthews? I heard there was some discussion. What's the latest?
Yeah, well, Brad Treliving and Shane Doan went out to Scottsdale this week and sat down with Austin Matthews and Judd Moldaver, his agent, to discuss just how the direction of this team is going to go. Now, my understanding is there weren't any actual significant contract discussions that took place. This was more of a preliminary meeting. Let's sit down, let's get to know each other, and let's map out a game plan. They want to keep Austin Matthews. There's no question about it. And Austin Matthews genuinely wants to stay in Toronto. But negotiations have not yet picked up, despite the meeting among those 4 gentlemen. Again, more of a let's get to know each other. Let's map out where the direction of this team is going to go. It sounds like Sheldon Keefe will be sticking around as head coach. They have other holes on this team. William Nylander needs a deal. They want to reshape their defensive core, and they've got a bottom 6 that they got to work on as well. They don't have many pieces. I think just one player that slots into the bottom 6, which is probably why they've kicked the tires on a guy like Scott Laughton out in Philadelphia. But with respect to Matthews, status quo for the time being. We had a nice dinner. Let's see how the rest of this month plays out with the draft coming up, and then let's get down to hard negotiations. That July 1, where his no movement kicks in, it's not that big of a deal from both sides. They have a lot of leeway here and a lot of runway to get a deal done.
Yeah, I would agree with you about that, Dave, because I think at the end of the day, that no move already kind of kicked in because he's going to have a lot of control over everything. So we'll see how things play out. Dave, thanks for the time today, and congratulations on getting to vote for the Conn Smythe. Good work.
Thank you very much. It was an honor.